Welcome back to Factory Sealed. It is August 27th, 2016. My name's Eric Peters, and joining me today, Mr. Daniel A. Curtis.
Hello.
What's the A stand for?
Archibald.
I don't think that's right.
I think it is.
I
love to be called Archibald. It's such a posh name.
I had a best friend in middle school whose last name was Archibald.
Last name?
Yeah.
What was his first name? Clarence?
No, Adam.
Adam Archibald.
I mean, that's a sweet name.
Yeah, I think it works better as his first name.
There is no way Archibald works better as a first name. Yes, I'm Archibald C. Snuffingtons.
See, that sounds great.
Snuffingtons. That's
maybe that could be Tom's new butler.
Archibald. Yeah, but when you shorten it to
Archibald,
Archie,
fetch my shoes.
when you shorten it to Archie, it's just. Ugh. I mean, if that were my name, I would require everybody to call me Archibald.
Archie sounds like more kind of an 80-year-old grandpa name.
Well, there was a TV show with a guy named Archie.
Is that?
I think it was just called Archie.
Oh, well, they thought that through.
Yeah. And then there's the Archie comics.
All right, yeah, of course.
It's one of those words that the more you say it, the dumber it gets.
I know. Like flange.
Or Fanny.
Fanny.
Fanny the cat.
Somehow, why does that mean two different things in our different locations?
Yeah, Fanny means butt.
But over here, it means a lady garden.
A lady garden.
It's trying to be polite.
Since when have we ever been polite?
It means pussy, sir.
It means the old box. The old vertical smile.
Oh, no.
Am I ruining it for you, Dan?
Yeah. That one hangs like the sleeve of a wizard, sir.
Gross.
Yeah.
Like an open-faced roast beef sandwich.
Yeah, you know how we had that discussion this week with loads of people where we said that we get negative feedback for being dumb?
Beautiful segue, Daniel.
Thank you.
I don't know.
I thought it was quite good.
We're going to segue to that, I think.
Are we?
I don't know. There are no show notes. The last time I took notes, you guys gave me shit.
Because you can still make them.
Well, it's too late. We're 20 minutes into this.
Let's just face it, you were too drunk to do them.
Oh, God, was I ever.
You really were.
Sony came into town Thursday and took me and a coworker and our wives out to this restaurant in Scottsdale called Posh. And
it's really called Posh.
It's really called Posh. And the tagline for this restaurant is improvisational cuisine.
Oh,
now
it sounds like what I do on a night when I just throw whatever I've got into the oven.
Crystal, what's in the fridge? I don't know. I'll just throw it in this pot and cook it up.
We got some moldy cheese and a suspicious sausage.
Is that cat food?
You can do a lot with that.
No, that's cat litter.
That'll do.
So this restaurant, we sit down and they give you this menu and a pen. And as a group, you decide how many courses you want on this meal. Your options are standard 5-course meal, the 6-course meal, the more elegant 7-course, or the super swanky 15-course meal. Those are your only 4 options.
Is that where they bring you literally the smallest amount of food per course possible?
Oh, absolutely. So
like,
all of those cooking shows
see it.
where they spend 20 minutes drawing on the plate with sauce, and then they slap half a leaf of lettuce and a quarter of a radish on there. That was this restaurant.
That sounds the worst.
So we asked them we all decided on the 7 course because we're just 15 is a little much. They said first course is a salad, then you have 5 entree courses and then a dessert course. The salad they brought out was, I don't remember what it was, but it looked like a quarter of a stalk of celery with a third of a pickled beet in it, and that was the salad.
Wow.
So on the menu, you had...
Do you think that these places, Eric, you just leave hungry?
Oh, dude, I was starving.
You'd have to go to McDonald's afterwards.
So below that, they have 15 different types of food and this is where your pen comes in. It says, cross off any foods you dislike. And there's everything from New York strip to veal sweetbreads to baby octopus, sea urchin, escargot, just a whole slew of random stuff. And I just didn't mark anything. I'm like, here you go. I trust you. And I asked her, like, well, I didn't mark anything off, so we're only getting 5 courses and there are 15 things on here. And she goes, well, it's whatever the chef feels like putting on your plate. Dude, it was hands down the best food I've ever had.
Really?
Oh, unbelievable. The best food I've ever had.
That's high praise.
There was...
Even better than a good old slab of steak from the steakhouse.
Yeah, surprisingly, no steak came out for me. So I had... What I remember having was sea urchin cheesecake.
Oh, dude.
It was the tits.
That sounds awful.
The direct tip of the nipples is what sea urchin cheesecake was.
Oh, that sounds disgusting.
Baby octopus.
Basically, you're just killing every baby animal possible.
Well, yeah. I mean, if they would have had clubbed baby seal on there, that would have been the only thing I wanted.
Wow.
Veal, I think it's called veal sweetbreads. I can never remember it, but it's baby cow pancreas in a pate.
Who eats that?
Well, apparently we did.
It does.
It's like a foie gras type food. But this is where we had this really big conversation about what the hell this is, because it tasted like peanuts. Not penis,
like penis.
Peanuts.
Like penis. You got there before I could.
With the nuts. Penis nuts.
It could be, for all you know.
So we called the chef out of this really elegant restaurant. Mind you, we'd had like 5 bottles of wine at this time and a bunch of drinks. And my buddy and I are arguing, like, it tastes like peanuts.
It really sounds like you say penis every time you say peanut.
I think it's because you want to hear penis. You got penis on the mind.
Always.
Old penis brain Curtis. That's what they called you in high school, isn't it?
No, they called me Jock Buns in high school.
No, they didn't. You were not Jock Buns.
I was Jock Buns.
So we had this conversation with the chef.
Because I like Jock Buns.
What I remember, we bet our money that it was the asshole of the peanut. And we were wrong.
It's probably a safe thing to say that you're going to lose that bet, because peanuts aren't well known for having assholes.
Well, you know when you crack the shell and there's that string that's attached to it? It could be a collection of those. A lot of them.
You're an idiot.
We also bet him $21 that he didn't know where the Caesar salad was made.
It's because you got very drunk during this, as you always do when you're very drunk. You decide to message us.
Oh, Jesus, I did, didn't I?
Yes, and there are many examples. And one of my first of my favorites is, apparently it's Valide soju and the chef fear going to beg it.
Oh!
And then Jess just said, one more time, the chef will what? He's been ring the shoe Jew. I out.
Yeah.
I just suit the Ricius cow pancreas.
What is that even typing?
And then Geus ois pit your dick face.
Pit your dick face on. What does that even mean?
I don't even know what you were going for. And as usual, right, because of the time difference, I wake up and I get about 100 messages just of this nonsense. Pit your dick face.
I vaguely remember there being some sort of phrase.
Oh, vaguely, eh?
Yeah, at the table, somebody saying, put your dick face on, and it just struck me as hilarious, so I decided to send it to you, and it came out as pit your dick face on.
Here's another one. Pro tip. Don't drink a lot of booze alcohol if you go to a fancy restaurant. They don't give you enough food.
Boy, don't they.
Because they could charge you ridiculous prices for small amounts of food.
Oh, dude, that bill. That bill.
Would it be bad form to polish off an $800 dinner with McDonald's?
Perhaps a gas station hot dog.
Yeah. Oh, please had a good time, Eric. Anyway.
Oh, God, it was so fun. Working is hard.
I'm not one for pretentious food.
Yeah. If you're in
I like a middle ground where it's reasonably fancy, like it's freshly made and not just out of the freezer and stuff, but I wouldn't go somewhere.
If you're not in
like
pretentious company, then it's a friggin' blast.
Imagine if we went.
Oh my God. It's a good thing we were one of the only tables in that restaurant that night. I mean, I can't imagine too many people would go out to a dinner that fancy on a Thursday night at 6.
No. Just Eric Peterson, the fanciest of us all.
Kind.
Tom has got to run for his money.
I brought my pinky braces.
Oh, by the way, Tom and Jess are not here.
Shit.
We always forget.
There is never a time where we don't forget that.
I know. Well, I just reminded you, so there we go. Where's Tom?
Tom is
he gone away again?
Yeah, Tom is in Germany making another rap video / porno.
Oh, if he did another rap video, I would die laughing.
I think he's going to. He said he's going to be making some music.
God.
That video is gold.
It's an absolute classic.
Because you've met him in person, he is the least gangster.
He is. He's just Tom.
I mean, he's just pure white bread.
Yeah. But he looks so cool in that video.
Like, he might even have the crust cut off of him. He's that white bread.
And what about Jess? Where's she at?
Fuck if I know.
I believe she may have moved house.
Did we even invite her to the show today?
I'm sure she said she was out this week.
Because it is Saturday.
She definitely said she was out this week.
Let's just go with that.
Yeah. Sorry, Jess.
Well, either way, I guarantee she didn't play what we played.
No.
So it would have just been an hour and a half of her sitting there trying to keep her dog from barking.
Just like the good old days.
Oh, we should all get a dog. Have a dog podcast. How much random shit noise can we have in the background of a podcast?
Yeah, that'll really go down well.
Well, as long as people know that's what they're getting into.
Is that perhaps a beautiful segue?
It is a beautiful segue. Back into something we already segued into but never segued to.
Yes. So it's a duplicate segue.
Well, the other one was a pseudo segue.
Pseudo segue.
But that starts with a P. So it's silent. Just like the H in herb.
Oh, Sodhoff. That has an H in it, Hoff.
Sodhoff.
It's a silent. It's a hidden H.
Just like the H in herb.
Herb. Do you just remove H's from every word?
Yeah, we don't yell help. We just yell elp.
There's an horse. An horse.
Hello.
Darling, I'm going out to cut the edge.
Who goes and cuts a hedge?
Anybody who sculpts hedges?
I don't think anybody who sculpts hedges speaks in that manner. Darling, I'm going to go trim the hedge today. Unless he's talking about her fanny.
Why would you have a hedge on your ass?
No. The English fanny.
Oh, right. you can't see it because when you say it, I think you're saying arse. So,
Well, I'm trying to be polite for the listeners. We have children that listen to this show.
really?
No.
Oh, thank God for that.
Trim the vagina.
Always tidy it up, everyone.
Just when I think we're going to start hitting a highbrow note, just...
We've never hit highbrow. That closest we came to highbrow was when we talked about cheese and pottery for about 10 seconds.
Yeah. And yeah. That was a good show.
It was a good show. That was my favorite.
So, back to the segue that we missed
Again,
for a
third
second
time.
time. We have changed the description of the show 107 episodes in. Because people, not long-time dedicated listeners, you people have been with us for a while and know what to
You know what
expect.
you're getting, basically.
Yeah. And if you're still with us, we're not concerned that anything we're doing is going to stave you off. But new listeners were giving some harsh criticism on a show that has 107 episodes that our show wasn't focused enough. Too much random banter. Too much stupidity. So we figured we may as well change the description of the show to be pretty indicative of that up front.
Well, yeah, because this is important to us. Like, we are like a podcast about retro gaming, but if you've listened for a long time, you know what you're going to get. We like to just have a laugh as well. We like games. We also like being stupid. We're a good bunch of friends. We just like to have a mess about, and this is what we want for a podcast. We don't want to be the people who like kind of focus on the lore of games, the people who dissect it and go into everything about it. We're not about that. We're about playing a game, having a good time, talk about it a bit, talk about some nonsense as well, and that's all it is, really. And the new description is reflective of that.
Correct. Good job, Daniel. That was a great
Thank you. I
explanation.
thought I summed it up beautifully, I thought.
If you want retro podcasts that really dive into the inner workings of the history of each game, there are other shows out there.
There are.
If you want people
But
who
we
just
like to be different.
play a game and talk about the game and perhaps their personal experience with it, as well as how to trim vagina hair, we're your show. So,
And as always, if you are enjoying the show, please just drop on iTunes and leave us a good review, because every little helps.
yeah. And maybe leave me a nice one.
Yeah, because
I'm the only
get
one
the
who's been
bad one.
specifically called out.
that's because you're a douche, my friend.
Apparently. That review came from the episode where I gave the breakdown of American gun culture and my feelings
Oh,
towards
God.
it. And somebody disagreed, so he went to the internet and left his opinion.
Oh, dear.
That's okay.
But just don't take anything we say too seriously. We're just joking, you know.
Most of the time, sometimes.
Most of the time, yes.
Except when it comes from wanting to build an island out of children's tears.
My proudest moment.
God almighty.
I'm sorry.
You're a sinner, Daniel.
I am.
There is some news this week, actually this morning, that we both just came aware of that I think we should chat about for a second.
What's that?
Final Fantasy 15 has some
Yes.
new, potentially polarizing news regarding it.
Oh, shit show. What the hell?
Apparently, there was... I'm trying to figure out where the hell I found it. There was an interview with the director talking about the progression of the game. And according to the producer, only 50% of the game is going to be open world. The first half. The second half is going to be linear.
See, Eric, I've always thought this would be the case. I thought it would be kind of pseudo open world where you have open world sections and old style dungeons.
Yeah, I never thought that it was going to be like the MMO,
It's not-
where it's just
Yeah.
this huge sprawling world. That would be a large undertaking. I would be fine if it was, okay, this section of the game, you're in this big piece of open world, and then this section you're in this big piece of open world, and there might be loads between the two, or once you progress to the next one, you can't go back to the other one. As long as there's big open spaces to explore, I think we're well beyond the era of here's your world map, top down, and you're walking around the globe. I think we're beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are just trying to pick flaws with this one. It's like, to be honest, the director might have been taken out of context again, because when Final Fantasy VII Remake was announced, he said, yes, it's going to be episodic, but each episode is in fact going to be the length of Final Fantasy XIII's trilogy. So...
Wait, each episode is going to be as long as 3 Final Fantasy games?
No, sorry, I mean, it's going to be like the length of Final Fantasy 13, the length of Final Fantasy 13-2. So basically, it's like those. It's like 3 games.
Got it.
3 full-length games rather than... This is what a lot of people are confused about. People think that Final Fantasy VII Remake will be like, for example, The Walking Dead by Telltale. That's not what's going to happen.
Where you get a 4-hour chunk here, 4-hour chunk here.
Yeah, you're going to get a full-length RPG, basically. But in 3 games.
To switch to that for just a second, because there's more Final Fantasy 15 stuff I want to chat about. I think I think what we saw happen with No Man's Skies is what's going to happen with Final Fantasy 7, but on a different level. Because this game exists now, and they've been so hush-hush about what it's going to be, people have started developing their own perceptions of what the 7 remake is going to be, and it's not going to be any of those. And I think a lot of people are going to be sorely let down. Everyone's like, oh, I can't wait to go back to the Gold Saucer and play this game, and I can't wait to do snowboarding again and all of this and that. I think all that stuff is going to be cut.
I don't think that'll be cut.
I guarantee you it's not going to be a straight shot-for-shot remake.
But no, it's not. They've said that it isn't. I mean, you can't really have the same game in modern society. It's like, it just wouldn't work.
The one piece I hope they keep in is when you're escaping from Midgar and you're breaking out of the Shinra headquarters on the motorcycle, and then you have that motorcycle breakout on the highway.
Yeah, well, they actually remade that for mobile.
Called G-Bike, yeah.
Yeah.
Has that hit the States yet?
I think so. And it might have been pulled, actually, after a while. But, I used to love that minigame.
Final Fantasy VII G-Bike shutting down after 1 year.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Sounds like it was shit.
It does, but I think people just need to... This is the problem with having such vast access to the internet with the game industry, though, because the game industry is still incredibly secretive, but people on the internet try and find everything out before something's out.
Oh, God, like the PlayStation 4 Slim right now?
Yeah.
It's been in the wild. People have taken pictures, they've loaded it, they've been bought, they've been sold, and Sony still refuses to accept that it exists.
Why? Just say it.
Just own up to it.
And look, Nintendo NX is meant to come out next year. We still don't know what it is.
I kind of like that, though.
I don't, though.
Well, here's the thing,
in this day and age, I don't think it works anymore.
It works on a level where I think how Apple does it is the best. They announce something and they say, it'll be available in 3 weeks, or it'll be available in 3 months. I don't like this, what we've come to with Last Guardian and No Man's Sky, where they're like, okay, this game is coming out sometime.
I mean, the hype for these games gets so vast that your expectations can't possibly meet it. This is one of the problems with No Man's Sky. It was hyped up to be something it wasn't. And when it hit, loads of people went, this isn't what I wanted it to be. But it was never meant to be that.
Well, I think that was consumer hype. That wasn't developer hype.
I know, but this is the problem with things having such a long cycle. They get revealed 4 years in advance, and then by the time it comes out, you've seen things about it, and you want all the hype's real, and the trailers look great, and then it's not necessarily the full experience. This is the problem.
Yeah,
I try to withhold my judgment on a game until I actually get it in my hands and play on it.
The only thing that I have seen visually of Final Fantasy 15 are the trailers, the Platinum demo, and the episode to Sky. That's it. I have not watched gameplay video or anything. I've read a few articles here and there because I'm taking this approach with new games that if it's something I'm interested in it from the beginning. I don't want to spoil anything.
I know, this is the thing. It's like when movie trailers are out and they have most of the footage from the film in, and you're like, well, that's just done all the spoilers. So
Which is
what's
why I
the point
don't watch
watching
all
it?
of them.
I know.
With the new Transformers one, they'll release a trailer for that, and I'll go, I want to see it, and then I'll just stop watching it.
Really? Transformers?
Dude, Transformers is the nipples.
The last film was atrocious.
No way. It was way better than the first three.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, it was.
No, it wasn't.
Daniel, you're wrong. And it's okay to be
Eric,
wrong.
You are very wrong.
Together we're right.
Yeah, that'll do.
Two wrongs make a left.
Yeah, but getting back to Final Fantasy 15 anyway, I'm still really looking forward to it. It's a core Final Fantasy game. It's been years since the last one.
Has the Kingsglaive movie played in any of your theaters over there yet?
I don't think so.
There is one theater in Phoenix that's playing it, and I'm super tempted to go and see it.
It's a good introduction to the world of Final Fantasy 15, but not necessarily a good film.
Well, I think people are trying to judge it based on that. Like, look at the Ratchet and Clank movie. I just bought that the other day, and I sat down to watch it last night. And the whole time I'm thinking to myself, this is fantastic. It's pure fan service. But people who don't have that history with Ratchet and Clank are going to look at it and go, this is kind of a shitty movie.
Well, this is exactly the same with Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, isn't it? I mean, that film for me was amazing because it was just pure fan service. From like the first time when Kadaj transforms into Sephiroth and it starts playing One Winged Angel, I just completely went crazy. I was like, this is so good.
A tear trickled down your face.
A little bit of wee came out. Yeah,
your fanny started to tingle.
It was gotten a bit moist down there.
And to get me a washcloth.
Gonna need a bigger one than that.
Get me a towel.
Get me all the towels. It's like he's being attacked by a ghost.
There it is.
There it is. Every week. Yeah, but that was a good film in my opinion because it was pure fan service.
And Spirits Within wasn't terrible either.
I haven't seen Spirits Within.
It wasn't good.
Did you play Dirge of Cerberus?
No, I have it, but I've never played it.
Really?
Yep.
It hasn't aged brilliantly, but as a continuation of the Final Fantasy VII story, it's quite intriguing.
I just never cared much for Vincent and Yuffie.
Well, that's the problem with those two as well, because they're optional characters in the Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, I played with them. I got them every time I played through it.
Yeah, but I'm saying, though, in Remake, chances are they won't be optional characters anymore, and they will be integrated into the story.
Which is fine.
It's just fine, but yeah, that's another thing to necessarily don't expect it to be a like-for-like remake. Expect it to have elements of the original, like the things you remember, like Cloud's Buster Sword, which we've seen already, and stuff like that. But I rewatched the TGS experience the other day, or the PlayStation experience trailer from last year, and it just looks great.
I think it's going to be very similar to 15. I think it's going to have a lot of the same gameplay style as 15.
I do as well.
I wouldn't be surprised if they're just lifting the engine and remaking it.
It's apparently built on on Unreal though, whereas 15's built on in-house engine.
Interesting.
And Tom was saying apparently most of the development's been handled by an external company, contracted out by Square.
Eesh.
So
it would have been awesome had they brought the original team back.
But there is some of the original team, like the original director and stuff.
I don't know how I'd feel about that. Remaking your old game.
I mean, something with this level of hype as well, something that people wanted for... Basically, so it's Sony's fault for doing the tech demo on the PS3. This is what started the whole thing. I mean, if you're unfamiliar with this, basically when the PS3 came out to show what it could do, Sony recreated Final Fantasy VII's opening sequence in Midgar on the PS3. And, of course, everybody thought, right, they're remaking Final Fantasy VII for PS3. Ever since then, it's become this kind of mythical thing, which was finally announced a couple of years ago at E3. And amazing, that's amazing. But it's, again, stuff like Half-Life 3, when that comes out, that can never live up to the hype. No. Ever. I honestly believe Valve have just not bothered doing it because they know this.
Yeah, I think regardless, people are going to be disappointed with Final Fantasy VII Remake. Because there are such a large number of people out there that are just expecting it to be, this is the same game I played when I was 9, and now it's not that. They're just going to nitpick it apart.
Yeah, but I'm just going to enjoy it. I'm happy that it's coming out.
I really enjoy HD remakes where they just take the same game and flash it up.
Yeah.
Kind of like what they're doing with the PS2 games on PS4, which is one of our games for this week.
It is.
Segue!
But before we get into that, the most obvious example of that would be Abe's Odyssey with New and Tasty.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
It's not an HD remake. It's a new game that's identical to the one from PlayStation 1.
And it was great.
Shot for shot. And the cool thing about it was reading what Lorne Lanning had to say about the game when he was making it. First of all, he's very stern about it. It's not a fucking HD remake. But he and his team went through and made sure that every puzzle felt exactly the same. There were the same number of steps between each landmine, and all of the moves still felt the same. And it's true because I played the hell out of Abe's Odyssey on PlayStation 1. It was the first game I ever had for my PlayStation, so I played it incessantly, over and over and over and over.
I think I had the demo for Abe's Odyssey and then finally got it for Christmas. But I remember playing Abe's Exodus more, which is also being remade.
Yes. And the attention to detail that they put into that, I'm okay if a company does that. But I'm curious to see how Square handles the 7 remake.
I think we're due a new trailer soon, surely.
You think they're going to announce more at this Sony conference on the 7th?
Maybe.
Oh, God. I'm super excited for that.
We might be getting 15 out of the way first.
I'm excited for that conference because they're finally going to be announcing some shit on the Neo.
Hopefully. They haven't actually said they're going to yet.
It's going to happen. You have to expect it's going to. Because at that point, they're going to... I'm hoping they announce a PlayStation VR bundle with the PlayStation 4.5 or Neo or whatever. Because then I can justify buying a new TV.
Try explaining that one to the missus.
She doesn't care.
Fair enough.
Yeah, she's like, all right, let's get it. Because I want to get a TV that's got 4K with HDR, both of which are going to be supported on the new PlayStation. Supposedly.
Pacifically. Yeah.
Daniel.
What are we talking about? Game of the week.
Game of the week. Oh, my God.
Game of the year.
Fantastically excited that we finally decided to play this. It took enough convincing to get you to sink your frickin' teeth into it.
I think ever since we started speaking about 5 years ago, you've tried to convince me to play this one.
This is in my top 5, maybe my top 3 favorite games of all time.
Wow.
Of all time.
And you've never finished it?
Never finished it. And I have a solid rationale for why.
What's that?
Because I'm afraid if I finish it... Yeah, probably because I suck and can't.
Yep.
I'm afraid if I finish it, to me, in my warped little mind, it means I'm done with the game forever, and I'll never go back to it. So by never finishing it, I've always had that drive to go back to it, and because I keep going back to it, I like it more and more. This time
Eric,
playing through it...
I don't think you could ever get done with this game.
Oh, God. I see that now. This time, I've done more than I've ever done in any of my other previous playthroughs, and I'm still not even as far as I've been before.
Wow.
So this week, we are talking about the fabled Dark Cloud 2 / Dark Chronicle, depending on what region of this fine planet you live on.
Yeah, we had a bit of confusion about this when we first got it.
Yeah.
Basically, Eric sent me a message saying Dark Chronicle is like £5. Get it? And I was like, you know what? I'll get that. It's fine. And then I went on the PS Store and it said Dark Cloud 1, Dark Cloud 2. And I was like, well, which one is it? And then Eric was like, it's Dark Cloud. I was like, it's not Dark Cloud.
I said it was Dark Cloud 2 and you kept calling it Dark Chronicle. I'm like, no, Dark Chronicle is Dark Cloud 1 in European country. And then you need Dark Chronicle 2, but they had switched it for some reason over there, where here it's Dark Cloud 1, Dark Cloud 2. There it's Dark Cloud, Dark Chronicle.
It makes more sense, I guess, because Dark Chronicle has nothing to do with Dark Cloud 1, does it?
No, but how many other games? Final Fantasy VII has nothing to do with Final Fantasy VI.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this game, made by one of my favorite developers, Level 5.
Also one of my favorites.
They did Dan's Game of the Year last year, Rogue Galaxy.
Yes.
They've done
Ni no Kuni.
Ni no Kuni. They did Dragon Quest VIII, Journey of the Cursed King. They did Fantasy Life. They did White Knight Chronicles 1 and 2. Which I think you would really like now that you've played Dark Cloud.
I'd probably like any of their games at this point. Every single one has been excellent.
Without explaining too much of White Knight Chronicle, because I haven't played too much of it because it's just such a colossal game.
Yeah.
It has an MMO style to the overall game. You're not jumping between towns. It's got a big open world. It's more like Dragon Quest VIII, but then you have these same diorama elements where you go and you design a full town and you put shops and things in there and you recruit people to go and live into it, very similar to Dark Cloud 2.
Okay.
And then if you buy White Knight
Dark
Chronicles 2, you get White Knight Chronicles 1 with it, so you can play through the whole first game and then seamlessly branch
lose
into the
most
second
of your
game.
life.
Oh, God, it's huge.
But Dark Chronicle is pretty vast.
Dark Cloud, just for a quick breakdown here, Dark Cloud 2 is an action adventure RPG town building golf simulator.
With optional fishing.
Yes, optional fishing and
photography.
Oh, yeah.
And inventions.
There's so much to it.
When we first started playing this, I found it incredibly difficult to get into.
The learning curve is a brick wall.
Oh my god, you're all right because you've played it in the past and you have the strategy guide. But coming into this game blind with no prior warning what's going on, it's so much at once to wrap your head around. But once you do wrap your head around it, everything comes together beautifully, and it's a lot of fun.
You're never wanting for something to do. So before we branch into all of that, let's get the story element out of the way here. The game follows character, little boy named Max. He's probably 10 or 11 years old. He lives in this secluded town of Palm Brinks, where everything seems to be really idyllic. However, nobody has ever left the town, or the mayor has walled the town off. All the trains have shut off. All the gates have been closed. Nobody gets to leave. So Max is an inventor working in this Cedric's workshop and gets a ticket for the circus that comes into town, Flotsam's Circus. And on his way to the circus, his ticket gets stolen by a little boy or a little girl. He chases the little boy or girl down, decides in the long run to give the kid the ticket because the kid is homeless and it's like, I just wanted to see the circus. And Max goes, you know what? Here you go. You can have it. Cuts away.
His new knife.
This little boy goes, you've passed the test, and disappears. And Max gets his ticket back, goes in, can't find a place to sit, to stand to see the show. So he climbs up onto a rafter. And in the process of watching the show, he overhears the mayor with the head of the circus interrogating him over, he's looking for this stone called the Atlamelia stone. Don't know why he wants it at that point. But he turns around and he sees Max. And Max has the stone. His dad had given it to him. So that's where the game picks up. You're running away from this giant elephant/robot monster and escape into the sewers. And that's where the game kicks off. So Max is trying to figure out what's the importance of this Atlamelia stone. What's going on? What does the mayor know? And you're on your way.
That's basically the story, yes.
There is a precursor to this. The opening cutscene shows a girl whose name is Monica running through a castle fighting. She finds her father in the throne room dead.
This is your introduction to the game mechanics as well, isn't it? The fighting.
Correct, yes.
Yes.
Which can be a little off-putting at first, but back in the day when they came out, it was standard fare. Z targeting, and attack. That's about it.
Well, I think we need to... Well, after you've done the first section in Palm Brinks with all the story and stuff, you go into the sewers, and this is where you get your first, what's known as a dungeon in this game, where basically you have a selection of different floors, and you have to go through each floor trying to find an item to unlock the next floor, while also battling enemies, opening chests, etc. Both Max and Monica have 2 weapons. Max has a gun and a wrench, or they can get slight variations on each. But and then Monica has a sword and magic, and basically magic and gun is ranged attack. Sword is actually close up attack, and the enemy. Or you also have a thing called a ride pod as well, don't you, Eric?
Yes, Steve the ride pod,
which is a giant robot which you get off Cedric, who's kind of Max's mentor.
Yeah, so halfway through the first dungeon, you encounter Flotsam with Linda the elephant, and you aren't strong enough to defeat him. So Cedric busts in, punches the elephant around a few times, you hop on the ride pod and leave. Takes you back to town.
And then Linda just waits there for you, of course.
Yep, so you fix up the ride pod, and then he gives it to you. This
is also the introduction to the invention mechanic.
Jesus, and this is where things just, you dive down this really deep, dark rabbit hole. So Max has a camera, and you can take a picture of anything. And certain elements, and there are hundreds, if not thousands throughout this game that you can take pictures of. So when you take a picture, it'll either just say Palm Brinks, or if you take a picture of a barrel, it'll give you a little ding sound, and it'll be like, a barrel. So you can go into your camera and register those photos that you've taken into your invention book. And then you can go through and combine 3 items to make something or invent something new. And there's just infinite combinations. Granted, not everything makes something, but you can invent new wrenches, you can invent aquariums, you can invent things for your ride pod, items so you don't have to buy them.
It's crazy. It's so much depth. It's I was saying to you, I couldn't invent a lot of things because I didn't know what to combine with each other because I didn't have the strategy guide. And then you told me you can find things around the world which tell you what to invent.
It's so clever where things are hidden too, because you can go into people's houses, you go into a bedroom on a bookshelf, it's like, oh, I can click on this bookshelf and it'll say, Max read this and got an idea for an invention, and it lists 3 items. But it doesn't tell you.
And you don't have them items, you're like, where are they?
Yeah, and it becomes this hunt. I remember I didn't have this strategy guide when I was a kid, so I would take notes and be like, this is what, and just little lines of 3, these 3 things. And when I'd occasionally take a picture and that would pop up, I'd look back at my notes and be like, oh, I can make this now. And it would pop up. It's like, oh, damn it, it's cheese.
This is the only thing, like, the only thing in the game, those inventions don't get logged in anything, so you have to kind of remember them there and then or jot them down.
That would be the one criticism that I would have, is it would be nice if there was an idea notebook that if you read those...
There's a notebook for everything else, like quests and enemies and things like that, but
I think
not for that.
What's important to note about the dungeons too, and this is what's really cool and what keeps me coming back every time, is that the dungeons are randomly generated.
Yes, they are.
Every time you
go into
I didn't
notice this for a long time.
Yeah. It's so the first one is the underground waterway, and you've got your standard rats, and for some reason there's clowns down there and frogs, and as you progress through the dungeons, they introduce new enemies that get more difficult. So they are expecting you to obviously be progressing in power. So after this battle with Linda, you come back with the ride pod, you start encountering enemies on their own ride pods. So Max can switch between himself and riding the ride pod. But the issue with the ride pod is that it's super powerful, but it doesn't last very long. It's got fuel and it's got weapon hit points. So as you're riding around, it's taking up the fuel. As you fire your gun, it uses up your weapon hit points. So there's a lot of elements in this game to manage. So even with Max, when you're swinging your wrench, it's damaging the weapon. You're firing your gun, it's using up the weapon hit points. So you have to keep these powders called repair powders. And if you get
getting into that rhythm, Eric, is what's struggle coming in new is what I struggled with the most. Actually, developing a method of buying things and then having the necessary finding where to buy things so you can actually repair your weapons, and then finding health items, and then finding where to upgrade the ride pod and repair the ride pod.
Oh man, because
it kind of doesn't tell you.
No, and it's really overwhelming because there's no item that you can buy that upgrades or repairs the ride pod, so you have to go back to Cedric every single time the ride pod runs out of fuel, and he'll refuel it for you.
Which could be cumbersome, but I feel that when the game opens up in particular, when you can use the move thing to move between things, like the loading is like instant.
Yeah, for a game that came out in 2004, the load times are almost non-existent.
It's fantastic. And it's with a game with so much to it as well.
This came out in 2002.
Right.
Game's 14 years old. Holy shit, that makes me feel old.
We are old.
Ugh.
But still enjoying ourselves.
So every enemy drops 2, potentially 3 things. They drop gold, they may drop an item, but most importantly, they drop little blue orbs called ABS, or ability spheres. And these will level up your weapon according to which weapon you used to kill that enemy. So up in the top right, you have your wrench and your gun, or your sword and your armband. If you kill an enemy with your wrench, it'll give you ability points that fill up this blue meter and then level your weapon up. Every time you level it, it slightly increases your statistics on that weapon. But every level gives you synth points. And this is where the game really becomes incredibly complex.
Oh, God. Well, I'll let you explain more about it before I tell what happened to me.
So every item, literally every item other than key game items, can be synthesized. So if you go into your item, or you go into your weapon, you can click on Build Up, and it gives you a branch. Here's your weapon that you have now, and then it gives you a branch of top or bottom, or sometimes it's just one. And it gives you a criteria of, hey, here's what you need to upgrade your weapon. You need to put these different elements into it. So it's like attack, smash, beast, exorcism, cyclone, scale, all of these different elements that you can upgrade. So if you're fighting a flying enemy, you obviously want to put more cyclone into your weapon. It'll have more impact on them. Or beast will attack animals stronger, and so on. Typical fare for RPG combat. However, each item is correlated to a different element. So if you synthesize that item, you turn it into this little glowing sphere. And then based on how many synth points you have, you can put those onto your weapon. And once you, and this is where you went wrong, meet those specific criteria, you can upgrade your weapon to a different weapon.
Yeah, I kind of didn't realize you had to put specific criteria into it, and instead just put whatever. And so I had a very basic weapon with very high fire damage, basically. Because it'll flash which ones you actually have to upgrade to get the next stage of the weapon.
See, and I'd known about it because this is exactly how Dark Cloud 1 was.
Yeah.
So going into it, I knew how to do all of that. But I can see where that would be
incredibly
confusing.
addictive, Eric, though.
Oh, yeah. And because you're constantly hunting around for, oh shit, I need a power-up sphere, or I need this wind element. And what's cool is they give you these orbs. And those are the most powerful because each one you synthesize gives you 3 points. So if you synthesize a beast sphere, it'll give you 3 points to beast, but only take 1 synth point. Whereas if you use a wind element, it only gives you 2 and still takes up 1 synth point.
So it's all about managing it. And this is what might put a lot of people off, because sometimes it's a bit grindy. You have to go back to dungeons you've already been to sometimes to get spheres and things like that.
But I think this, to segue off that, I think this game really did a good job of addressing that, because you're right, it could be very grindy to just continually go back. However, every level has goals and medals that you can achieve within that. So it encourages you to go back. So Sunday of last week, you and I agreed to stop at the exact halfway point in the game. I didn't want to stop playing for a week. So for a week, I've been going back, doing nothing but revisiting old dungeons. And I still have yet to get bored. So when we ended, I was at barely 20, 21 hours. I'm over 30 hours now, and I still haven't progressed in the story. So
I'm about 26, I think.
Every level has 3, sometimes 4 medals that you can earn. One is always going to be for fastest time cleared. So you go through, just kill all the enemies, and you'll get a medal. Sometimes they say defeat all enemies without healing, or defeat it only using Max's gun or Monica's sword, or only using items. Later in the game, you get a fishing pole, so you can fish on most of the levels, so there's a fish requirement. And we'll get to the whole fishing aspect of the game in a little bit, because holy God.
I haven't even touched that, man, because it's too much.
It's way too much. So every level has a fishing requirement, like 40 centimeters or larger. And then there's this game that opens up, we'll get to that later, called Spheda, which is like golf, that you can play on every level. So there's an encouragement.
I couldn't believe it when that was in it. I was like, oh God, something else.
There's an encouragement for you to actually go back and earn those medals, but to get to the point where you can fish in the level or play the golf game, you have to beat the level again. So in the process, you're still continuing to level up your character. You're continuing to get elements, diorama elements, which we'll get to in a minute. There's a lot of
the medals you can't actually get unless you are stronger anyway. I mean, you couldn't blitz through a dungeon when you first get there with the strength that you're on and get the time limit one. You have to kind of run through with a stronger character.
Yeah. So that's the gist of the functionality and the combat and the elements of the game. Story-wise, we should progress with that a little bit, because there's still the most compelling aspect of this game that we haven't even touched on yet.
Oh, man. This is another thing that was incredibly daunting at first, but once it clicks, it's just great.
So, Max is this... He's a very wealthy child. He's obviously... I think he's the son, definitely the son of what I think is I'd say the most wealthy person in Palm Brinks. His dad's name is Gerald, lives in the mansion up on the hill. Palm Brinks is a huge town. For having been an openish world game in 2002, I just remember always feeling like, man, this town is big. There's so many different areas to it. But you go into the house and you can explore all this other stuff. But Max is kind of pseudo on this quest to find his mom, because he has vague memories of his mother, but he does these internal dialogues of as he's progressing on this quest, he's like, it's bringing me thoughts of you, mother, and where are you, and this and that, and all this other stuff. So after you leave the waterworks, you come out into the world, because Max is like, I want to go on this adventure. I want to see what's going on out there, because he knows something's clearly wrong with the world. And in the process, concurrently, Cedric, Max's mentor, and Mayor Need are best friends. Cedric confronts Mayor Need and like, what the hell's going on here? And Mayor Need breaks it down, saying that there's something going on in the outside world. And we needed to protect everybody in Palm Brinks, so we shut the town down. Cedric decides to help Max, opens up the train, the Blackstone 1, to head out of town. So when Max gets out of the waterworks, he meets Cedric on the train heading out of town. And that first chapter is really the introduction to the game. It brings you all the elements of here's what you're going to be doing for the next 70 hours.
If I was Max at that point, I'd be proper pissed off, because I've just been through all the sewers, and then this dude just shows up on a train, just like, yeah, you could have just come on the train.
We could have just fired this thing right on up, and you could have been right out of here. Save that arm a little bit of strength.
There you are, Max, just covered in shit.
Yeah. The boss battle on the train is actually a ton of fun.
Yeah, when you have to throw the bombs.
Yeah, you're standing on this train throwing bombs at Flotsam on this ATV.
Yeah, basically in the combat as well, you can also pick up like bombs and rocks and throw them.
Which is really important in the underground channel, because you're super underpowered, and if you throw a rock or a crate at somebody, it'll stagger them.
I never used it.
Neither did I. But that apparently makes the game a whole lot easier. And
it probably would. But
if let's say your ride pod is damaged and you're running low on items, you can pick those up and throw them at the larger enemies to stagger them and give you enough time to attack them. Whereas if you try to face off against like a giant dragon or a ride pod as Max, you're going to get destroyed.
Yeah.
What's important to note is that you do
until later on when you can actually attack them as Max.
this is the first time I've ever actually played through it utilizing the block mechanic.
Yeah, you kind of have to use that.
Because he absorbs almost 100% of damage, depending on the enemy.
Yeah, but you have to be fast most of the time.
Combat's very fluid. I'm super happy with the combat in this. Because you can do dodge maneuvers, you can charge your attacks.
I don't think it's that fluid. It's kind of its time, and it takes some getting used to, but once you get into it, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, but enemies have distinct attack patterns. So you can be like, he's going to swing 3 times, I'm going to block, I'm going to attack twice before he retaliates. But
you can usually knock an enemy down as well.
Yeah. What's also important to note is that enemies have an anger meter.
Do they?
Those red dots above their health bar are an anger meter. So as you attack them, those dots disappear. And when those dots disappear, the enemy starts flashing. And that means they're angry. And their defense goes up and their strength goes up.
Never knew that.
Yep.
Okay. More to the game.
More to the game. So after we leave Chapter 1, we enter the next area called Sindane. And hold on, wait, where did we meet Monica? Oh, that's right. So on the train, after you beat Flotsam jumps up onto the train with dynamite, and he's going to blow the train up. Monica, this random girl, shows up as that little boy or girl from the tent with the ticket and transforms into who becomes Monica, your second character. Cuts the dynamite off, kicks Flotsam off the train, and that's how you're introduced to Monica. And she becomes your partner in this adventure. And over the course of the time, you realize she is here for a purpose, and that becomes unveiled here in Sindane.
Correct.
So when you walk into Sindane, this is where you understand that every game or every world has 2, maybe 3 different sections. You have a main town or area, and then the dungeon and some areas within the dungeon. So in Sindane, we come across Furbits.
Crazy little dwarf dudes, basically.
Yeah, they look like hobbits. Monica knows about Furbits. So you walk in, you see this house. You're in this big, open, empty field with this house. And you see this Furbit out there. And apparently Furbits, what is it, like grape juice?
Yes, they like grape juice, the weirdos.
So Monica convinces them to let her and Max into the house because she's like, we have grape juice. And she looks at Max like, no, we don't. I'm just going to be a bitch and lie about it. So they get in, and there's the Elder and a couple other Furbits in there that are really pissed off because all of their friends were lured into the woods and have not been seen. And they tell this story of a lady named Holly. And Holly was this woman who just appeared and lived with the Furbits, and they all developed this deep relationship with her, and one day Holly just disappeared.
What a bitch.
God damn it. So the Furbits went into the woods to find Holly. And that's where you dive into the Rainbow Butterfly Woods.
Yes, the second dungeon.
Yes.
Which again is going through the floors, floor by floor. You have to find a fairy saw item to unlock the next floor, which is dropped randomly by an enemy.
Well, and now this one introduces another element within the dungeons where there's an optional branch within the dungeon. This one has giant spider webs where you can pick up a branch and wipe down the spider webs and go to a second section of the dungeon. You don't have to. You don't have to defeat all the enemies to progress. So if the first enemy you kill has the fairy saw or whatever item, you can just leave the dungeon and go to the next floor.
Yeah, but you gotta, Eric. You gotta kill them all.
Well, there are some times, though, in the early game, or the early dungeons, where I'm running low on health, because you can only carry 20 bread, and cheese is unbelievably expensive. You're running low on health, you're low on repair powder, you're just hunting for that item, and the second you get it, you're like, fuck this, I'm out of here.
That has happened to me as well, but once you get into the rhythm again, it's just, I think the problem with it is waiting everything to click, but once it does click, it's great.
Yeah. So You want to take the part where you meet the Furbits and the flamboyant fish?
Oh, God. Well, I struggled with this for a long time trying to figure out what to do with the fishing. Because you get basically halfway through the dungeon and you end up in this section where the Furbits are, and they're kind of all out of it.
Fish Monster Swamp.
Fish Monster Swamp, yes. And then one of them's fine, and he gives you a fishing rod. And then you go around the corner and you meet this weird creature who's ill.
Yeah, Master Utan. He's a giant orangutan.
Yeah, and does he need a fish to get better or something?
No. He needs, I thought he needed an antidote because he'd eaten a poison apple. Oh, yeah.
But to get that, you have to talk to the flamboyant fish.
No. The flamboyant fish is the one who has the spell cast over the Furbits.
Oh, okay.
And you need to release that spell by fishing with a poison apple in this swamp, because that's the favorite food of this super gay fish.
No, you didn't have to use the poison apple.
Yeah, you did.
You didn't. I used the worm, definitely.
That's not possible. You have to fish with a poison apple.
Oh, maybe I did. I don't know.
That's just how it's done.
But it doesn't tell you this.
No, not at all. Well, he gives you Master Utan gives you a hint about the god of the swamp or something loves poison apples. The Holy One is what he's called. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, so you have to fish this giant flamboyant fish out of the river, and then he comes out and he's like all sparkly and keeps winking at you, and he's just a caricature of a homosexual, basically, in fish form.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
cross-dressing fish.
It's just bizarre,
and he is upset because he's dirty. So
don't you have to rub it with a fish
to get him to release his spell on all of the Furbits? You have to fish out a pristine fish from the other swamp, bring it back to King Marden, and give it to him. And then he goes, okay, and blinks his eyes, and these magic glittery hearts release this spell on the Furbits. It's the weirdest part of the game. Hands down,
bizarre.
The weirdest part. It just does not fit, but it's hilarious. You put out a picture of him, didn't you?
I think so.
With his eyes blinking.
I think so.
He's so funny. He's one of my favorite characters.
It just comes from nowhere. It's just so random.
Ooh. So he releases the spells on the Furbits. You take the Furbits back to the Furbit house in Sindane. And this is where they start. Monica reveals this is what's happened. And this is the main story of the game. So up until this point, we just realized something's happening in the world. These towns are very empty. Monica reveals that she's actually from the future. And there is this evil force. No, she's not a Terminator. There's this evil person called Emperor.
We don't know. We haven't finished it. She could be.
Oh, God, at this point. This evil guy named Emperor Griffin has gone and started deleting origin points. He's
basically messing with time, isn't he?
Yes. He's going back in time and deleting things so that they don't exist in the future so he can rule the future.
Yeah.
And Monica and Max tell this to the Furbits, and the Furbits say, we want to help you and repay you for what you've done. We need to start restoring the origin points is what Max and Monica need to do. To restore the future so that they can fight Emperor Griffin, Monica's come back to restore the origin points and is going to with the help of Max. The Furbits say, oh, we can help. They run off into the woods, jump over the bushes, and come back with this giant flying robotic contraption with arms and hammers and screwdrivers called the Carpenterion. And this is the main element of the game where you're introduced to the concept of Giorama.
Yeah.
And
again, another daunting thing.
Oh my God, is it ever. So to progress past each section of the game from here on out, you need to rebuild these origin points or these towns. So the first one, you're in Sindane. But to do that, you have to go through the dungeons and collect these stones called Georama stones, or geostones. Each level has one geostone. So you collect the stone, you bring it back to the Carpenterion, and upload it. And it'll do one of two things. It'll give you a new item to make, or it will unveil a new Georama requirement. So each town has certain number of requirements that you must fulfill, ranging from you have to have 15 trees or 10 pieces of river, or this person needs to live here, or you have to have this many culture points. But there are main bullet points for this is how you restore this piece of the future.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about it. As you start to build up the town, you can jump back to the future.
And watch the future expand.
Yeah, and it's so cool.
It is.
It kind of goes hand in hand with what you do in the past, though. For example, in Sindane, you may have to make 2 trees, two which look like eyes and one which looks like a nose. Mm-hmm. And then in the future, when you go jump to the future, it creates like a tree creature, which is made up of the Durak, which is made up of the eyes and the nose, which you built in the past. And it's just so cool.
Yeah. And then yet another element is introduced at this point. All of the people, not all, but a good number of people from the main town of Palm Brinks can be recruited to join you on your adventure. And you have to move them into certain towns. So, for example, in Sindane, you have to have Polly, who is the bread maker. In order to, and the reason that I know this is because I have the guide, but it makes sense looking in context. In the future, one of the requirements is you have to restore the eatery, which is in Jurak's nose for some reason. So if you're playing through this without a guide, you need to sit there and think about, like, well, who do I know who's a cook or something? So you could either think Chef Ferdinand or Aunt Polly. So you go and you recruit Polly, but it's not as simple as just walking up and saying, hey, come with me. They generally have something for you to do, a little mini quest, and they're not very long, mostly just fetch and return or go deliver something. But you can move people into these houses. However, people are picky about their house. Some people don't want to live next to somebody else. They want their house to be a certain color, or they need to have a certain number of lights on it.
Or a fence around it, or a mailbox. It's kind of, yeah. But every character does have their own quests, like Eric said, but some of them are more annoying than others.
And each person you can actually put into your party as a non-playable character who gives you additional benefits.
Yeah, that's quite cool. Although I've been using the same guy forever.
Yeah, I just keep Cedric in my party.
No, I have the guy who gives you more items.
Oh, I took him out. So essentially, you are rebuilding the town of Sindane in order to restore the future, so that you can get a new piece of information about the future and then move on. So
it's important to talk at this point, Eric, as well, about to build everything, you have to have Georama parts, which you will find in dungeons that drop from enemies and stuff. But you don't necessarily always have the Georama parts, so this is where it gets a bit grindy.
Oh, yeah, things like leather hide, wind
rolling
element,
logs,
forest
sticky
dews.
clay, glass.
Yeah. There's
You
so
can
many
actually
things.
buy them from a Furbit at the back of the train, but again, you might not necessarily have the gold you need, so you'd have to go back into the dungeon and kill a few enemies to get the gold you need to buy these.
So last night I just realized I made a fatal mistake. Occasionally, I'm sure you've stumbled across a few, occasionally you'll come across these really rare stones, like emeralds or diamonds or sapphires. I had a few and sold them instead of spectrumizing them.
Yeah.
If you spectrumize them, they will upgrade like 5 different elements by 15 points each.
It's incredible.
So, yeah, I was super pissed off about that. But I spend so much money. I just sell things. Like, you get those elements all the time, like the wind orbs or the fire orbs. Sometimes I'll have 15, 20 of them and just sell 10 or 15 of them at a time to buy scraps of iron.
Yeah, and it's all about that balance of what do you buy, what do you sell, what do you need to get to build these things, and there's a lot to process. But again, if you put it all together and you start to understand how to work around the systems within the game, this is when it really starts to click in your mind, and you're like, right, this is a really good time. Like, I'm really enjoying this, you know. And it was about halfway through Sin Dane that actually happened for me. I was like, first I was like, this is grind, and I'm sick of this, and then as I started going on and on and on, and I was like, oh, right, this is starting to affect the future, and it's all really exciting, and I know what I'm doing, and then just
you'd almost hung the game up halfway through the underwater channel.
yes, no, I was in the woods. I was in the woods.
Oh, okay, yeah. I remember you were just by the Master Utan, so you hadn't even discovered Giorama yet. And the beautiful thing about this now, and there's still elements we haven't even touched, but what's beautiful about this is that if any part of the game gets boring or starts to feel repetitive, there's 5 other things you can jump to. So if you're tired of plowing through the dungeons, and each of the worlds, the dungeons get longer and longer and more levels to them. So the underwater channel I went back to, I'm like, wow, there's only 4 here or 5? It felt a lot longer. Yeah. And then you get to the Starlight Canyon, you're like, my God, this never ends.
There's locked paths inside each dungeon, which you can't access until later in the game, so we're not up to that yet.
No.
But you can go down them paths later on, so there's even more to each dungeon.
In the woods, you're also introduced to the concept of monster transformation. Oh, so whereas Max can switch to the ride pod, Monica can transform into monsters. However, you have to get a monster badge, and to do that, you have to get a gift capsule from the future, put 3 items in it, throw it at the monster, make sure you hit it, and then kill that monster, and you'll get a badge. And there's 12 monsters you can turn into. I've done none of them other than the only one that's mandatory for the game.
No, I didn't do it either.
And I tried to get into it last night, but it's not an element of the game that I'm super interested in.
That's fair enough. I mean, there's so much to it that you don't necessarily have to do all that. Yeah. Apart from some of the medals, which you get from in the dungeons, you have to use monster transformation.
So I think at this point, it's important to note in the story that Max has this inkling that Holly, that the Furbits are in love with, is his mother. Because as they're describing Holly, Max like, this sounds like you, mother. So you get to the end of the Rainbow Butterfly Woods, and you meet the Rainbow Butterfly, the legendary creature.
And in an incredibly complicated boss fight, which
it was very difficult.
Did you struggle? Because I'll explain. Basically, the Rainbow Butterfly, you have to kind of attack these tendrils coming out of the flower at first, and then the Rainbow Butterfly splits apart into the colours of the rainbow and loads of different butterflies. And you have to attack them in the colour of the rainbow.
Roy G. Biv.
Yeah, but I must have been, I think there was one which looked slightly like another one, and I was hitting the wrong one every time. I was like, why is it not working?
Yeah.
And yeah, it just took me quite a few goes.
So after you beat the Rainbow Butterfly, the butterfly returns to the form of Holly and reveals to you, this is what happened. So when the legendary Rainbow Butterfly was just a small butterfly, it got stuck in a spider's web in the forest. And right when it was about to be eaten, the Furbits came by and saved it. So she transformed into a human to go and express her gratitude and thanks to the Furbits, but could only stay for a certain amount of time. And when she left, that's when the Furbits followed her into the woods and fell into the spell of King Marden. She became possessed by this evil power of Emperor Griffin due to destroying the origin points. So you find out that Holly is not Max's mother. Aww.
Aww. Well, he shouldn't think that everybody he meets is his mother, shouldn't he?
Well, it makes sense that he'd be like, oh, here we go.
Oh, she's in the first place I go to on an RPG. Of course that's going to happen.
They're building the story. So, of course, you get back to the train, and magically the train's ready to go because you have 2 guys with you named Eric and... I don't know the other guy's name.
I thought it was a woman.
Is it a girl? Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah, one of them's the small one's a girl. Or the small one's a guy.
Is it?
Yeah, they're both guys. But anyway, there's stones blocking the train. You take off. The next area you stop is Balance Valley.
It is.
Tell me about Balance Valley, Dan.
Well, this is where the diorama gets even more complex because do you want story or diorama first?
Do story piece first.
Right, you get to Balance Valley and there's one house. Inside there's a guy is he, an owl?
Yes.
And he's looking after this person who's sick. She's went into shock after somebody's been killed.
Lin Su, I think her name was.
Yeah, and basically what you have to do at this point is find a remedy to fix her. And doing so requires you to go through the dungeons and repair the diorama to in turn repair the future.
Correct. So each of the levels progresses in much the same manner. Something's happening in the present that can only be rectified by resolving the future.
And in this case, it is rebuilding kind of a temple and a restaurant where a guy can develop a dish which heals any illness.
Lao Chow's Wonder Dish.
Bistro.
Yeah, Lao Chow's Bistro.
Yeah, and to do this, you have to... Basically, in Balance Valley, there's 4 different columns kind of with grass on where you have to build the town. But this introduces the idea of weight in the diorama. So if one place is too heavy, then you can't affect the future without balancing it by placing things on another one so it is the same weight. So because in the future, basically everything's built up into this like big kind of temple thing, which is on kind of different platforms, which have to be the level heights. So you have to kind of make sure each platform in the past is the same height to do this. Otherwise, it won't work.
And everything from putting trees to fences affects the overall height of each platform.
I didn't find it too hard to manage, though, to be honest.
No, but I'll say that Balance Valley is my least favorite. It's the coolest element-wise, but it's my least favorite to build out. I just never have gone back to it and made it look like a town because they're not connected. And that's where it's so dumb. It's like, why would you build a town here? There's no bridges. I put Parn in his paint studio on the top of a pillar with a 3,000-foot fall on either side. He's going to die.
I mean, I thought you would be able to build bridges. I was expecting when I was collecting the geostones to get a bridge at some point.
You can get bridges and put them in Sindane over the rivers.
I know you can, but then I was expecting to get them there as well. I only realised earlier today that certain elements are locked to certain areas, whereas some are universal.
No, they're not.
They are. You can't build a bridge in Balance Valley.
You can build it, you just can't place it.
You also can't place things like the grass and stuff from Sindane.
Well, the bridge has to go
over... Go back later and check.
The bridge has to go over a river piece. So if you put a river piece on the top of a pillar in Balance Valley, you could probably put a bridge over it.
I'm sure you can't build them.
I'll have to double check it.
Yes, you will.
So Starlight Canyon is the dungeon that you plow through for this one, and this is where you meet some really big, super difficult enemies, like giant golems, stone dogs, dragons.
Yeah, this is where you really have to start thinking about your combat.
Yeah, and this is where they introduce the seals on the levels.
Yes.
So Max has the red Atlamelia, Monica has the blue. So there's 3 different seals that you can get. You can get a white seal, which means you can't heal the entire level, which sucks.
Oh, God.
The blue seal means that you can only use Max, and the red seal means you can only use Monica. And it's important to note that you can leave the dungeons, but you lose half your money every time you escape from a dungeon.
So it's best not to, really.
Oh,
unless you are in the worst state possible.
I've had a few. Just last night, I had another accident where I died and lost an hour worth of time.
Oh, I always save before every dungeon.
Well, I was just going through old dungeons and grinding and just wasn't paying attention and got hit and died.
As an experienced Dark Souls, Eric, you should know not to get cocky.
Ugh. It was frustrating because I'd done so much diorama stuff.
I can imagine. I actually went back and rebuilt Sindain, and I've done the third one as well, so I unlocked that thing you said.
That thing.
The Nova Cannon for the ride pod, which is awesome.
You can use that till the end of the game.
It does so much damage. It's incredible.
So halfway through...
basically...
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, you go. No, you go. Sorry.
We're trying to rebuild Lao Chao's Bistro, and halfway through you come to this giant open area where this vulture comes down, because you need to make Lao Chao's dish, you need this fabled white flower, and it doesn't grow in the future, and it's very, very hard to find. So you end up in this giant open area, and this vulture comes down and tells you that there's this thing hovering over her nest of babies. And Monica recognizes it as a time distortion. She goes, oh, we need to close that. There should be a time fragment around here somewhere. So they find the time fragment. She goes, all right, now you got to find a stick. And in the process, you find the stick and come back, and she goes, now you got to hit that time fragment right on into that time distortion. So they introduce a full-fledged golf game into this RPG.
I know. What's that about?
But what's really cool about it is that there's an element of strategy to it where the time distortion will be either red or blue. The time fragment will also be either red or blue, but every time the time distortion or the time fragment bounces, it changes color. And you can only throw a red distortion into, or a red fragment into a blue distortion.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So if you have one hit, and you only get a certain number of hits, if you have one hit left and it's blue against blue, you have to ricochet it.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult.
I've finished very few of these.
I've done about 3. But when you unlock this, it also unlocks challenges in the older dungeons where you can play it. And I'm sorry, Eric, but the ones in the woods are impossible.
They're very hard. Did you know you can hit it through the woods? Like
I did, but there's no way of knowing where it's going to go.
No, because if it goes off course or falls in the rivers or lands between the paths, it's out of bounds and you lose a stroke. You
kind of just have to look at the map and hope for the best, really.
Yeah. Or just putt it down the corridor and hope you have enough hits to get it there.
But you usually don't. So
and in the underground channel, it's so frustrating because every hallway is lined with a little river on both sides, and if the ball falls in there, you're screwed.
Oh, I haven't even tried it in there.
It's super annoying. The easiest one is the Ocean's Roar Cavern.
All right.
Because there's really no place
if you actually do it, you usually get a pretty good item.
Yes, you do.
A chest will appear.
Yep. So you repair this, and you get this flower, and you can go back and make Lao Chao's Magic Bistro. Miracle Dumplings. That's what they're called.
Yes.
And then Lin Su is revived. You restore the future. Does anything magical happen?
Where?
In the future that's super relevant to the story?
No, it's just upgrading the restaurant so you can get the thing to heal her. And then that in turn, well, you kind of use that because then you get a power to go back in time or something.
No, you already have the power to go back in time. You're thinking about when we get to Vinicchio.
No, I'm not. You have to, when you go to the lighthouse, you have to go back to the time when she got killed.
Because she wants to be this great sage, and she's thinking about her master sage crest. She's fallen into this illness because of grief and despair.
Mm-hmm.
So she goes back and revisits it, and you see that who's the Gaspard? This is where you're introduced to Gaspard. He's the boss for this one. So he had killed her master, and she had shut off those memories, just boxed them away. So you go back to the lighthouse and essentially relive this attack where Gaspard has been sent by Emperor Griffin along with tragic figure Dr. Jamming, who you fight later, to destroy these origin points, and the lighthouse is one of the origin points, and in the process kills Crest. In the future, because you've helped Lin Su, she becomes the great sage of the future.
Yeah, and she's still there, and she's an old woman, and she welcomes you when you get there.
Yeah. The battle with Gaspard was interesting because it was a two-part battle. You had Max, who was protecting Lin Su from these evil flames, and then Monica, who was actually fighting Gaspard. I really liked how they jumped back and forth between those combats.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was unexpected.
The next area, Venicchio.
I thought it was Venicchio.
Well, Max actually says it. He calls it Venicchio.
Does he?
Yeah. So that's why I thought
I'm calling it Venicchio.
Yeah, I thought it was Venicchio too. You want to take Venicchio?
You can take this one. I did Bounds Valley.
So you walk in, and there's nothing here, obviously, except for a cave, and you hear a roar come from the cave. So obviously you walk into this cave, and you find this little rabbit dude named Pow, and he has this giant sea creature called a Shiguru, who's injured. And Pow looks at you and goes, all right, stay here. I'm going to go try to find some medicine. And in the process, as soon as he leaves, this Shiguru named Shingala takes off after him. And that's when you jump into the dungeon called Ocean's Roar Cavern.
Yeah, and these dungeons were interesting because they introduced indoor and outdoor sections.
Oh, I loved that.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. It took quite a difficult turn here again, I thought.
This did get very hard when you started attacking the water spirits, aqua spirits. Those things can hit like a truck.
Yeah, particularly if you haven't been upgrading your defense and stuff.
This one was probably the hardest Giorama elements because you have to build on the water.
Yeah, but I loved that. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, you use these piers, and then this one had the most precise Giorama requirements. Like you had to have a certain number of iron houses. They all had to be a certain color, but then 2 of those houses had to be close to a shopping boat, and then you had to get certain people into those houses to restore in the future this giant Luna lab where only the smartest people in the world live.
Including the very unfortunately named Dr. Knob.
This little boy who looks just like the head of a penis.
It's so funny. He just comes up to you and goes, "Hi, I'm Dr. Knob."
Well, then you've got Dr. Osmond, too, who's just this crazy little monkey dude.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. But I love that, like how when you build the different color houses, then you go to the future and the different parts of the lab are different colors.
Yeah. So
I thought that was so cool.
They give you this thing called the Shell Talkie, which allows you to talk to the Shiguru. And you discover that the Shiguru have a massive impact on Luna Lab because every year the Shiguru migrate back to Venicchio with Luna Stones. And they use the Luna Stones to increase their brain power to invent more things.
Basically, they bring drugs.
Oh, yeah. Just PCP.
The Shiguru are drug dealers. That's what they are.
Aquatic dealers. So you need to find the Shiguru tribe, heal Shingala, save him, and then rebuild the future. What do they give you in the... because when you get to that point, they open up another element of they know what's going on. So when you restore the future here, they tell you Emperor Griffin is not in our time. He's not in the future, but in fact, he's 10,000 years in the past. But the Atlamelias only allow you to travel about 100 years each direction.
Yeah, so this is what you're rebuilding Luna Lab for, to get them to build something for you so you can go back to the past.
Called the Ixion.
And it's a time-traveling train. It's so cool. But at the end of Chapter 4, it doesn't unlock. You have to go somewhere else to start preparing to build it.
Because they don't... In the future, the workshop that would build it has also been destroyed.
Correct.
Before we get to that, though, At this point, they introduce the concept of fishing. Well, we know about fishing, but fish racing and fishing contests. So you can invent an aquarium, and every fish that you catch has certain criteria to it. You can cook it and eat it, which I do all the time just for extra food. Or you can put it in your fish tank and breed it.
Oh, you can breed them.
You didn't know that?
No, I haven't even touched it.
You can breed them. You can race them, or you can enter them in fishing contests. And the fish racing I'd never done before, so I dabbled in it. It's insanely complex.
Of course.
You choose a fish, you go to the fish frenzy, so every 2 days it'll alternate in the game. You'll have a fishing contest for 48 game hours, or you'll have the fish frenzy, which is fish racing for 48 hours in the game. And that's in Palm Brinks. What did you think about the battle with Shingala where you had to throw that electrified fish at him?
That was insane.
It was so hard because this is where I'd lost about 40 minutes worth of time because I'd forgotten to save a couple times going in.
Yeah.
You have to attack Shingala. He's got this mind control device on him. And the only way to get it off of him is to electrify a fish using the electro worm that you got from Luna Lab, and then you feed this electric fish to Shingala. But you have to attack Shingala to get him to open his mouth to throw it in. But I was so leveled up at this point that I could only hit him about 9 times before he'd die.
Oh dear.
Yeah. But if you threw the fish and missed, the fish
There's a game over if he dies.
Yeah, game over.
Oh.
It's not try again, it's game over. So that's where I lost about 40 minutes. If you throw the fish and miss, then it disappears and reappears on a different area in the map. So it took a few tries. But in this room, I missed something that Monica said. So after you beat Shingala, you look at this ancient mural that's actually the backdrop for the opening start menu. And Monica talks about how there are a bunch of these in the future, but nobody knows what they mean.
And that's it's interesting that you're at chapter 4, you haven't actually seen the bad guy, and like the main plot isn't coming to the forefront yet.
No, I really like that though, because it has all of these
28 hours in, it's kind of...
Yeah. Did you take a picture?
It reminds me of that
mural?
mystery from Final Fantasy VII where Sephiroth is kind of about, but he isn't really.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of have glimpses of what he's up to.
You're always a couple steps behind, like when you see that serpent in the marsh.
Yeah. But like, if you actually know your Final Fantasy VII lore, you're not actually chasing Sephiroth, you're chasing Jenova, who is just taking on his appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think that's one of the things they could elaborate on in Final Fantasy VII Remake, because it's not that obvious.
But back to Dark Cloud.
Yes.
The boss battle, tragic figure Dr. Jamming.
It took me ages to figure out what to do.
This is a very difficult fight. So you are met with Dr. Jamming and Gaspard on their battleship. They're going to destroy Shigeru Village. So you get out there, and just before they start attacking, you intervene. And 5 or 6 Shigeru surround you. They all have mind control devices. And you're in the center of them, and they'll drop their heads down on you. And when you hit them, their heads go up. But Dr. Jamming is floating in a circle above you playing guitar.
Just because.
He's just the goofiest looking dude.
He is.
Missing teeth, huge hair, ugly pants. But yeah, how long did it take you to actually figure out how to do this?
I died once, and then I was looking round, and I noticed that the things were snapping the heads back, and I was like, he's flying around, maybe they have to hit him, and I hit one, it hit him, and I was like, yes!
It's really hard to time, because the camera angle, you have to actually adjust the camera angle to see just the bottom of him.
Yeah.
I
took the opportunity here to take a picture of him as well, so...
Yeah, the scoops, that's another important thing. So there are certain photography elements called scoops that you can only get at one point in the entire game. And if you miss it, you can never get it again. And a lot of those come from boss battles.
What do you trade these in for?
They're used to invent certain items. Like the really high-level items, you have to have
All
these
right,
certain
okay.
scoops.
But you can also give them to Max's mate, can't you?
Who, Donnie?
Yeah, yeah. He trades them for something.
Huh, I didn't know that.
Uh-huh.
So after you beat Dr. Jamming, you go back. Luna Lab has been completely restored, and that's where they tell you the Ixion is needed.
You also meet Dr. Jamming's grandson, because after you beat him, he has a change of heart and joins the good side, basically.
You also finally get resolution on Max's mother.
Yes. Turns out she's from the future as well. Plot twist.
So this piece is fleeting on me. Maybe you have a better memory for details than I do. How did she go back and meet? She went back to. She was sent back to protect the Atlamelias, right? Because the Atlamelias choose their owners.
Yeah, she was trying to stop Griffin from interfering in the past.
So she was sent back to protect the Red Atlamelia, which Gerald had, and in the process fell in love with him, had Max. She was ultimately trying to get the Red Atlamelia, but it didn't choose her, it chose Max.
Yeah, she wanted to fight against Griffin.
And Max actually met her through a hologram. So he finally got to meet his mother. Which I don't recall that. This is about the point in the game where I've usually always stopped. I've played through a bit of the next chapter, but for some reason I just always never finish it. So this part was a little...
this time?
Oh yeah, I'm finishing it totally. This was a little fuzzy for me. So I really like where they placed this resolution. I'm glad that the finding my mom isn't the overall point of the story.
No, but by this point you're starting to realize there is more to the story, like Griffin in the past and things like that.
Well, because now they can run this theme concurrently alongside of the Griffin element. It's like, okay, now how can Max develop his relationship with his mom? Or is he actually going to get to meet her? How can he work with her? Interesting.
Yeah, it's good though.
We are at the exact halfway point of the game. There are 8 chapters. We are at the end of chapter 4.
So we're going to do another show in the future where we actually finish the game, hopefully.
What do you think so far, Dan? First half.
I have to say, I mean, maybe I probably liked Rogue Galaxy a little bit more, but as a great RPG, just to tidy me over in these next few months, it's been a really good experience.
It is definitely a phenomenal game. It's what an RPG should be. It should have a ton of stuff to do that no single element feels overpowering. And there are so many aspects of the game that you can just ignore and never miss a beat. You don't have to do any of the fishing. You don't have to do any of the metals. But if you want to dig deeper, you can.
Yeah. If you do want to give this a go, which I would highly recommend you do, if you're an RPG lover, particularly if you've played a level 5 RPG before. If not, a good time to get into it. Dark Cloud 2 and Dark Chronicle is available now for PS4, which is what we're playing through it on.
And it's really, really cool how they've up-resed it. They haven't physically changed anything. It's just, obviously, the PS2 and PS4 games have been up-resed. And it's great to play, because I have such fond memories of playing this game as a kid. I actually rented it like 8 or 9 times in a row for $5 a piece. I could have just bought the damn thing.
I know.
But I never had all that money all at once. So when I finally did get it, it was really a hard game to find and used. I still remember paying like $55 for it or $50 for it. No, probably 45 because games were 50 back then. So I'm super glad that you actually decided to dig into it and play this with me. Because
I am too. I like it.
I have been singing this game's praises for years.
I will even say that you were right. Well done.
I can occasionally be right.
It's rare, though.
It is very rare. So we're gonna stop there. Daniel, should we do some emails?
We should do some emails.
I got to figure out when our last show was. It was on the 7th, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so any emails after... Wow, it's been such a long time. No, we did a show on... I got to figure this out so I don't read extra emails.
I wasn't on that show, so I can't help you.
Well, let me just go to factory-seal.com and check it out. It was the 16th we had a show. No, that's not right.
Nice
it
plug,
was the 14th. Yeah, we had a show last week. You just weren't on. It was me and Tom and Jess.
I know. I was in Scotland.
Wait, no, that is definitely not right, because last weekend I was on...
Oh my God, just look at the emails that haven't been read.
No, the thing is that I read them when they come in.
Don't pull back the curtain.
Don't tell me what to do. Oh, okay, so anytime after the 16th, obviously. All right, first email.
It was the 14th last Sunday.
Yeah, so first email comes from Sean McIntosh. If you want to send us an email, factorysealed@manatank.com or podcast@factory-sealed.com. Both will make it to us in some way, shape, or form. Or if you so fancy, you can send them to us on Twitter or Facebook. First email comes from Sean McIntosh. He says, "Howdy, FSC. I'd like to suggest a game of the week for you guys. Child of Light. It was free on the Xbox One a while back and be purchased pretty reasonably on PS4 and I believe also on Steam. I was pleasantly surprised how quickly I fell in love with this game almost immediately. I think it's a must-have game. Also, you... Go ahead.
Sorry, I'll let you finish before I crack on, sorry.
Also, are you guys watching Stranger Things? What are your thoughts? Thanks, Sean McIntosh, Fenton, Michigan."
Thank you, Sean. I've been toying with the idea of getting Child of Light for a long time, but I haven't had time to invest in it.
For some reason, I have a strange aversion to it because I've never played it, but I went to a friend's house who was playing it, and I looked at it and went, this doesn't look like a game for me.
I think it looks decent. It looks I think it's built on the UbiArt engine like Rayman was.
Yeah.
It just looks great.
But you're right, I just don't have the time.
I'd love to get into it, but with Dark Chronicle and Final Fantasy 15 coming up, it's pretty unlikely at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe at some point. I would like to play it, Sean, but I don't know. And Stranger Things, we've both finished it, I believe, right?
And I loved it. It's one of the best shows I've watched in recent memory.
I'll agree with that.
It just tickles your 80s bone.
It does.
I mean, you and I were both too young to really have cognizant memories of the 80s.
I was born... I had 5 days in the 80s.
See, I had 5 years almost.
Wow.
So I do remember bits and pieces of it, but it's just so well-paced that it genuinely feels scary. There were a few nights where I was laying in bed because Christy was out of town, and I was watching it by myself, and I got scared.
Oh, bless your cotton shucks.
Oh, diddums.
No, but I won't reveal anything about the plot because I think people should just watch it, to be honest, but it's a good time.
The ending was awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely leaves it open for another season. Or 5.
Yeah, but they have said they don't want to do too many.
Correct. Next email comes from Jack Grant, and it is gloriously short. He has a simple question, and this is going to lead to some stupid debate.
Oh, no.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Where does he get these from? No, it's not sandwiched between bread.
Dan.
Hello.
What do you think a hot dog bun is made out of? Concrete?
Bread.
Yeah, okay, and you just said it's not sandwiched between bread, and then you followed it up immediately with hot dog bun is made out of bread.
No, but you cut the bread down the middle. You don't sandwich.
Okay, so that's where I think the important distinction needs to be made.
Yeah.
Because you drop the bun into the bread, so therefore the bread becomes a cradle.
Yeah, it's not a sandwich, it's a cradle.
So by our standard, technically anything could be a sandwich as long as there's bread between it.
As long as something is like poop sandwich.
Well, that would
2
be
bits
your
of
butt
bread,
cheeks with poop in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're in the same agreement with this.
So-
This hot dog is not a sandwich.
Do you know what an antipole is?
A what?
Antipole.
No.
They're opposite poles. So if you and I are on the exact opposite side of the world from each other, with a piece of bread,
okay.
and we put it on the floor, would the earth be a sandwich?
Yes.
But if we had one big piece of bread cradling the earth, it wouldn't be a sandwich.
Correct.
Now, here's the real question. When you dress your hot dog, do you dress the dog or do you dress the bun?
The dog.
I usually do as well, but my grandpa was adamant. You don't dress the dog, you dress the bun.
He's wrong.
I think by Coney Island standards, you're supposed to put the stuff under it.
But you always put stuff on top.
Well, I know it's because we're lazy.
I imagine it would be less messy if it was underneath.
Have you ever had a Chicago dog that has like tomato and pickles and onions and peppers?
Oh, no.
Oh, it's so good. Celery.
I did have a very nice chorizo hot dog once, though. With
Chorizo?
spicy mayonnaise.
Chorizo.
Chorizo.
I don't know. I think you could qualify the hot dog as a subset of the sandwich family. It's
But
the
not a
adopted son. Because it's a hot dog.
Jack, stop it. A master of daft questions.
Next email comes from Rob Strom. Salutations, Factory Seal crew. I just watched Eric and Dan play Batman Forever, and holy shit. I don't know if I feel dumber after watching that or smarter because watching you two try to figure out that game makes me question your credentials for hosting a gaming podcast. Speaking of which, I picked up Beavis and Butthead for the SNES at a local flea market just to add to my collection, and shit, it's actually a really fun game. I highly suggest you guys play the game for an episode because it's so dumb, yet so smart of a platformer. Cheers. P.S. Jess, stop dropping your keys and poo. It's unsanitary. Sincerely, Rob.
I have to say, Rob, that video is an absolute classic. I could not laugh at that video. It's just
It might
so
be the
funny.
dumbest thing we've ever made.
It's so funny, though.
Next
It's
email.
just-
Oh, go ahead.
That Batman Forever game is just so hard to play.
It's terrible. It's almost unplayable.
We spent about 10 minutes trying to figure out how to grapple up to a ledge.
And then when we did it, we had no idea how we did it.
And then we spent about 2 minutes just crying and laughing because we were swinging from the rafters. Whee! If you want to view that video, go to our YouTube because it's just bloody hilarious.
Last email comes from Eduardo Fuerte, and he, like Jack, has a very pointed question. Cake or pie?
Is that it?
That's it?
Cake.
I'm torn. It depends what type of cake. If we're talking carrot cake, you can go to hell.
See, Eric, I think in America you have pie more than we do with sweet. Like
Yeah,
we
see-
have meat pie.
I just remember when one of our Unwrapped episodes, you're like, oh God, Eric, if you ever come over here, I'm giving you a meat pie. And it just conjures such a dirty image of what meat pie is.
Of course.
It's like hair pie.
It's nice.
No, I mean it's like a pot pie, like chicken pot pie.
Yeah.
But how many different types of meat pies can you have?
We have steak pie, rabbit pie.
Like shepherd's pie?
There's usually many chickens pie. You have shepherd's pie.
God, when we used to have
Fish
shepherd's pie
pie.
in middle school or whatever for school lunch, it was like, well, I'm going hungry today.
Yeah,
So you don't ever have like
without a
apple
doubt, I am a
pies
cake
or
fiend.
cherry pies or pecan pies?
No, definitely not.
Why?
We do, but it's rare.
See, the best thing
Huh?
about pie is you put a small slice on and then you cover the plate in whipped cream.
Oh, that sounds nice, though.
Yeah, just...
Thank you.
And then you squirt some in your mouth.
Of course.
And then a little more on top of the pie.
So it's just a mound of squirty cream.
Squirty cream. Is that what it's called over there? Not whipped cream, just squirty cream?
Squirty cream.
Whipped squirty cream.
It's like he's being attacked by a ghost.
Courtesy of the Curtis grocery store. Whipped squirty cream on clearance today for free. All it requires is a few kisses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm an absolute cake fiend. I mean, at work, I developed the cake rating chart because we used to get cakes every time it was somebody's birthday. And we had to all score a cake. And there has been a 10 out of 10 cake, which was very chocolatey and very nice.
See, I like angel food cake with the whipped cream frosting.
Don't think I've had that.
Carrot cake is Satan's asshole of cake.
Yeah, but if it's not as bad as Twinkies. But I don't think they count as cake. I think that counts as something in its own class.
Something indigestible.
Yeah.
Oh. That's it for questions this week.
Well, that's a lot of emails.
We did have a great conversation on Facebook about what's the best Zelda game.
We did.
And you forgot one on that list, Dan.
Did I?
The CDI version.
Oh. I don't know what that is.
The Philips CDI version of Zelda. You've never heard of that?
Nope.
Oh, it's shit.
Is that the cartoon one? The adventure one?
Yeah, that's... Nintendo's officially been like, yeah, this doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So, definitely had some more activity on the old Facebox page.
Yeah, if you want to weigh in and give us what you think is the best Zelda, jump on. Have a look.
I don't even know. What are we playing for next week?
We are playing Super Mario World 3 Wario Land.
Oh, shit. Who recommended that?
Jess, apparently.
Wow.
She must have just added that in.
Wow. Back to the old Game Boy. I think the next
She's
episode...
still got the cat lady later on as one of her choices.
I don't know when we're going to do the next episode of Dark Cloud 2, but we'll probably just schedule that when you and I both near the end. I don't want to put a time on it because I want to enjoy the rest of the game.
Me too.
Daniel.
Nice burp, by the way.
You like that? I kept it in.
Thanks.
That was for you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
But the week after that, we're playing Driver on PS1, apparently.
Oh, shit. Who filled this stuff out? This is all new.
And then the schedule's all wrong, so I don't know. The next choice is Medieval.
Okay.
Then Vice City.
Oh, dear.
And then Jess has the cat lady. Resident Evil 3.
Oh, yeah.
Super Metroid. Bill and Ted's Excellent Game Boy Adventure.
So we should move all of these up so that they're... Did I really recommend Medieval, or I thought that was you?
That's mine, but the schedule's all buggered up because we did...
Well, I think I took
been
Medieval as your suggestion because you wanted to do Vice City, so that's fine. We got to delete Cat Lady because screw that. I'm super pumped for Resident Evil Nemesis. I'm also going to make sure that Silent Hill 2 falls on.
No.
Plus, I want to make sure you have enough time to find a copy of it.
No.
Yep. Dan,
no.
Yes. We told you this last year. We gave you a year to prep your butthole.
I'm ill that week.
Then we'll just push it to the next week. You will play all of Silent Hill 2. It is the best horror game
I don't like horror games.
of ever. Ever.
I'm a pussy.
Well, yeah, naturally.
Yeah, that's the schedule anyway.
Sweet. That's going to do it for the show this week. Dan,
hello.
Where can we find you on Twitter?
On Twitter, you can find me at Frosted Sloth. Eric.
Yeah.
Where can we find you?
You can find me at Honest Pizza.
Irish pizza.
You can find the show at factory-sealed.
_sealed.
Sorry. The website, factory-sealed.com. Facebook.com/factory-sealed. The last thing, I know we've talked about it before, but we genuinely would like somebody to work with us to get us a new logo or iTunes image. If you are of the artistic sort, digital artistic, or hell, even if you're just artistic of sorts and want to proposition us, we are looking for a new iTunes image.
And we will pay cash money.
Not a lot, but we will pay cash money.
At least $1.
Maybe 21. That's the average tip rate.
Generous?
Yeah. Got to do what you got to do, man. People got to make a living somehow.
I don't tip people.
No. Isn't it considered an insult over there?
We just don't do it very often. It's become more common, but I refuse. I'm just like, you know what? You're doing your job. You're meant to bring me food.
Well, do your, not to segue too much into more conversation, but do your waiters and waitresses over there make a certain wage? Do they make a decent wage?
Not really.
Oh, because over here, certain restaurants, they only make like $2 an hour.
No, it wouldn't be allowed. We have minimum wage.
No. Well, don't be a waiter then.
No.
Continue sitting at a desk and doing nothing.
I shall.
Daniel, any final thoughts?
Are you still an idiot?
I'll get back to you on that next week.
Good.
It'll take me that long to figure it out.
Then you clearly are.
No. What?
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 Huh? Never trust a fart.
Thank you.
Dan, that's going to do it for this week. Folks, we will see you all next week.